Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy you could join us today for IPDAE's Webinar Wednesday. I'm June Rawl, the Director for Florida IPDAE. Today's title for our webinar is Effective Strategies for Improving TABE 11 and 12, Level M Language Skills in the ABE Classroom. Again, we have back Nicole Howard-Rice, one of our lead trainers for IPDAE, and she will be the main facilitator for today's webinar. Just a few quick housekeeping tips and things to remember. Your microphones are muted. You are in listen-only mode, and today's presentation, like all IPDAE's presentations, are recorded and archived on the IPDAE website, which will be available within 48 hours. Your PowerPoint has already been downloaded on the IPDAE website as well. If you have questions, and I hope you do, Nicole and I will be looking at them throughout the presentation. Please enter those questions into the Q&A option that you see the arrow pointing to. Nicole, I know you've got a lot to talk to us about today, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today on our IPDAE Wednesday webinar. In this session, we will explore effective strategies that support the instructor when teaching in a Level M language classroom. Today, we'll discuss strategies that will support teaching conventions of standard English, text types and purposes, vocabulary and acquisition, and there may be a couple of other ideas that you can draw from such strategies. I want to go right into the growth mindset, because we all know that that's important for us before we do anything else with our adult learners. And today's quote comes from Abdul Kalim. Teaching is a very noble profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. If the people remember me as a good teacher, that will be the biggest honor for me. And that stands true to me, and I'm sure that that rings true for you as well. We know that TABE 11 and 12 language blueprint standards give a clear breakdown of all things covered for Level M. The conventions of standard English breakdown, they cover all language. They cover the college and career readiness. We have a content emphasis of high for the TABE 11 and 12. That's going to be important if you're pre-testing and as you build your instruction for post-testing. 44% of that is covered on the test. We're going to address NRS levels 1 and 4 as well, all within these standards. The same thing for the vocabulary acquisition and use. That's also a high emphasis, but only 26% of the TABE 11 and 12 is going to cover this information. Text types and purposes, that's another high emphasis area. And most of the webinars, you'll always see that I'm going to spend I spend most of my webinar on high emphasis areas. There may be a few pieces that could be infused in a medium level or a low emphasis area, but we're gonna always draw from the things that are gonna be most critical to the learner making academic gains when post-testing. Creativity starts with a thought, always. How am I going to teach them? How am I going to teach effective strategies in a Level M classroom that will support all learners in the classroom? Again, we go back to that growth mindset. But in this slide, we'll take it a step further. You know, when dealing with adult learners, a lot of the times they come in with a fixed mindset. We have to take them from fixed to growth. Sometimes they say, you have what you have. I mean, you know, if I can't get it, then I can't get it. They also say, how? I mean, this is not my main concern. I've got bills to pay. I've given all the effort that I can give. They give up, they check out, they give up, they check out because they haven't been exposed to that. And then when you start talking about feedback, you start talking about whether or not the individual is able to process that which you're giving them. And then they sometimes beat themselves up for making mistakes. But this is where we come in as adult instructors. We teach them the importance of growing and developing, learning and focusing, taking some information, if they just give it a little effort and process it in pieces, not try to eat the whole pie, so to speak. The challenges that they face, it's our job to help them to persevere. And the feedback has to be specific. It has to be sandwiched with something positive, then the information that you want them to rework, and then it needs to be closed on the other side of the bun. That needs to be positive, so that they always feel that you have their intelligence in mind, that you have their goal as your main concern, that effort is at the top of your chart for them, and you will celebrate each and every one of them, that you will encourage them when challenges come, and that you will always provide them with real-time feedback, and you will take every mistake, quote unquote, that they make and rework it for their benefit. Now we need to talk about, and I'm sure that most of the instructors have an understanding of this, but I can't emphasize this enough, because a lot of our instructors teach in K-12. So when they come in the evening, they transfer K-12 strategies into an adult learning classroom. But when you start dealing with andragogy and pedagogy, there are two very different styles. Andragogy refers to a theory of adult learning that details some of the ways in which adults learn differently than children. Versus pedagogy, that method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept. Children don't have real world experience just yet, or very little, let's say that, very little. Whereas adults learn differently a lot of the times because they do bring that real world piece to the table. And those things have to be considered because they come from a practical place, whereas children a lot of the times solely come from a theoretical place. There are some exceptions to that rule, let me be clear, but more often than not, it's a theoretical concept solely. Andragogy principles appeal to self-concept, taking that learner and making that be the main thing. Taking past learning experiences, I cannot stress that enough, because the learner comes to our classroom and they feel defeated. A level M learner feels like, okay, I have some foundational knowledge. That's a very tricky level, because they say I have some foundational knowledge, but then at the same time, simultaneously rather, that learner is also saying, but I don't have enough to carry me over to the next level. So you have to make sure that you embrace what they know, which may be in part on the foundational level, and then at the same time reinforce what they need to know so that they can make the gain to go from level M to level D, almost to level A. And you already know that level D, well, you should know that level D and level A, the concepts in TABE 11 and 12, they're going to interrelate at times. So if in fact you're using a specific LMS, LMS meaning learning management system, that correlates by skill, you're going to find that a learner can learn in level M and then be ready for level D and level A work. I didn't say gain, I said work. So bring in the past of what they know and begin to build on what you know they need to learn. That readiness to learn, that learner comes ready to learn when they enroll in our programs. It's your job to ensure that they stay in a place of readiness to learn, and that we build on the internal motivations that brought them there through, again, past learning experience and activating prior knowledge through the self-concept. Teaching strategies. What are effective teaching strategies? They refer to methods used to help students learn the desired course contents and be able to develop achievable goals in the future. Key word here is achievable. As another key word would be future. Everybody has some type of goal, whether that goal is to get up to go to work, get up to come to class, or get up to complete their diploma. Our job is to cultivate the goals into achievable tasks that build the learner's future. Effective strategies for all classrooms. These are a must. I've spoken with other teachers. I've used them in my own classrooms. I've used them in my day-to-day practices throughout the district and throughout my IPDAE training. Clear goals and objectives. Always set up an environment for compare and contrast. We annotate even as teachers when we're creating plans. Summarizing the content. We must always be able to differentiate exactly what we're teaching. Consider the way a person learns. The ones that are used more often than not are the auditory, the visual, the tactile learner. If you have a tactile learner in your class and they have to touch something like their cell phone or pens or papers, you can get little toys and something that they can stretch. It'll help relax them, and it'll also help them process the information that you're giving them in your direct instruction. Recognition. I know that it may sound cliche, but you need to provide some kind of incremental success. Like if somebody does something, make a big deal out of the small thing. Make the small thing a big thing. Because if you make the small thing a big thing, then the small thing will turn into a big thing, and the big thing will turn into a bigger thing. Application and practice. If you're going to have a learner apply something, you must provide them an opportunity to practice. That means when you download an IPDAE lesson plan, you need to take that lesson plan, you need to make it your own, and you need to provide opportunity for those learners to apply the activities that are within those lesson plans, execute them, and just practice them over and over and over and over again to ensure mastery. If you're teaching a science class and you're relating language skills within a science class, because you should be interrelating the disciplines, especially at level M. And you can use these in a language level M classroom. Develop a hypothesis. Give them something to test. And then recognize where they've made success through the application process. And again, as I stated earlier, that targeted repetition. When you're dealing in an ELL class, the same things. And in addition to that, the strategies that are here on this slide should be used across the board, especially when dealing with adult learners. Cultivate relationships. Teach language across subjects. Emphasize productive language. Things that you know they need to know, things that cause them to have to move into action. Emphasize those things. Ensure that you're understood by the learner. This is in all classes. Don't just provide a lecture of some sort and you haven't even checked to see if the learner has mastered the material before moving on. Incorporate multiple modalities. Please have different ways to approach a subject. Don't broach a subject with one way and then say if the learner can't adapt, then you don't know what to do for the learner. They've already been beaten down enough and they've made it thus far, and they just need you to take them the rest of the way. And when in an ELL class, it's okay to use native language infusions. If that's going to drive the concept, then do it. Just do it. Anything for the learner. What is the conventions of standard English? The use of common, proper, possessive nouns. Who would hear? I know, and I'm asking a question, and if you want to answer or send me a nod. Who's using worksheets to teach this concept? If you are, there's a better way to do it. Use IPDAE lesson plans. Go on Google, find activities to teach concepts. Adult learners don't do well with sheer activity sheets alone. They need something hands-on. You could develop like an alphabet basket or word basket, or you can do there's the, what do they call these? A beach ball, and you can have a beach ball and list the words that you want them to match up. They have to create sentences, and you play a hot beach ball game, and they have to bounce the ball around the room. It may sound a bit juvenile, but you'd be surprised how much adult learners appreciate that. What does vocabulary and acquisition mean? It's the process of learning new words, through defining new words, pronouncing them, identifying the part of speech, and reading the new words in a sentence. You don't have to do this the standard old way where you, again, give a packet or you just put a couple of words up on the board and have someone come up and do sentences. A great way to do this is you can bring magazines into your classroom and have them cut out letters and create words. If there's a word list that you would like them to learn, you can take that and make it a creative activity where they work in groups, and they have to decide who breaks down what. And one person may define the new words, the other person identifies the parts of speech, and then they have to quiz each other with that peer-to-peer learning. You'd be surprised at how much more they learn from each other than they learn from you with a standard style lecture environment. And then after they've done this and you want to get them together to conduct some type of formative assessment, this is great. You can have them write a short story or a summary based around what they learned as a group, and then have them present it to the front of the class. It builds confidence. You've taught them new words without even helping them, but supporting them instead. And then they'll be empowered when they leave your room. And then you don't have to worry about retention. What are text types and purposes? Now this is key, because we may look at this and look at the standard and say that's a lot. But really we're talking about narrative writing, which is to entertain. You can open up with this at the beginning of the term and have them write a one-pager about themselves and tell an exciting story or something that happened to them that they thought was bad but ended up being the best thing for them, and have them compare and contrast their thoughts and ideas. Expository writing, that's something that you can do later in the term, maybe by week 3 or week 4, where you give them a topic and they have to inform you on it. And they have to use the strategies of compare and contrast. And then by week 7 in the same language level M classroom, you can have them write an argumentative essay or an argumentative piece rather. And at that time, they should be able to persuade you as the reader or persuade their partner in a writing piece where they are still comparing and contrasting. You notice that in all writing styles, they're comparing and contrasting, which is teaching them how to communicate one with each other, how to communicate when they're at work, how to communicate with you, the teacher, and they're learning how to have a position on a thought. So there may be something that you present in class that they may want to challenge, an idea, or they may want to challenge within their thought. This is the perfect environment to cultivate that type of dialogue back and forth. I agree. Gradual release is a fantastic way to maintain a movement in your class and also teach all types of concepts, especially in compare and contrast. We already went over the definition. To compare something is to look at the difference, to contrast something is to look at the differences, but to compare is to do the opposite, to look at the similarities. Now this is important because if we're going to teach argumentative writing, expository writing, and narrative writing, we need to speak to a thesis statement. One might argue whether or not you need it on narrative writing, but I believe you need it everywhere. A thesis statement is one sentence that expresses the main idea of a research paper or essay. It's going to express the main idea of any piece of writing that you're going to give to somebody else to read. It states what you're going to be talking about. It just lets the reader know where you're going. What can I expect from reading this piece? Every student needs to learn that. If there's a foundational way to teach it, yes, teach it at level E. But by level M, this needs to be part of your main pieces of the strategy, no matter what you're teaching when you're in a language class. The instructional presentation techniques. This I really want to talk about. If you notice over in the far, and it's going to be my right, but wherever you are, you see that, do you notice what the people are doing in this picture? They're sleeping. When we're having whole group instruction, especially in a language class, when a lot of adult learners tend to shy away from the concepts that we've discussed, text types and styles, language, vocabulary, and when you start talking about the conventions of standard English, people are running from you. You need to make sure that the interactive whole group discussion is just that. Not you just talking and then you happen to popcorn a student to get them to provide you with feedback. No. Have an activity-based approach. Have an opportunity for the learner to self-reflect. Be sure to put adult learners in cooperative groups. They like that. And all learning should in some way be interactive. Even if it's not the entire time, but for a great deal of the time, at least 80% of the time, you need to have them where they can form communities and learn and grow with each other. Ask lots of questions and answers. Wait for the answers. Ask open-ended questions and wait for the answers. Adults don't like to feel a lot of the times like you're talking at them. When you appear, now you can be the expert, but when you're dealing with an adult, you have to be careful not to appear like you are the only expert in a particular subject, but be open to the expertise that they very well may bring to the subject. Key vocabulary that will support all of your strategies. Attributes: regard something as being caused by someone or something. Debrief. Metacognition. Having awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes. There are very creative ways that you can teach these and reinforce them. And as an educator, sometimes we need to be reminded of these, the importance of debriefing something. Know exactly what you're going to do. That means you can't just come in and teach a concept under assumptions. Developing the concept. That refers to a basic level of understanding that is necessary to make sense of one's world, whatever they're learning or in their personal world. Again, our job is twofold as adult instructors. This includes ideas about self and others, objects, and the environment. The foundations of understanding, they're crucial to the communication, travel, and independence of our learners. Classifying. This means you're gonna have to I don't mean classify where the students know that that's what you're doing. I mean in your planning. If you may wanna label your groups as football teams, they may choose. They may wanna be different names of different states, and which will be great because you could take that time and you can teach some social studies skills. They may want to be different branches of government. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to take and use these strategies, the same strategies that will benefit you as an instructor will also benefit your learners in the language level M classroom. Strategies that support learning gains. That's what we're here for. Now, strategy 1. Identifying similarities and differences. Now, the Venn diagram is going to be great. Some students love it, other students dislike it. But I chose this particular one because you start talking about human-centered, social and cultural context matter, and network-centered. This slide will not only help you within your classroom, but this will help you in your lesson planning. Strategy 2, analysis of student work. You have to have a clear understanding of what you're instructing in order for you to be able to effectively analyze what the student is giving, so that you can ensure that once the learner is taking that reading language arts piece for the GED, that they do well on the writing piece, as well as in a reading classroom and in the social studies section of the test, even though there's no writing there, but their ability to understand the questions as they are read. And strategy 3, cooperative learning. We learn better together. We all hold one piece and we put it together and we make a perfect puzzle. Why these strategies? Why are these strategies important? Identifying similarities and differences. Again, we go back to that compare and contrast. Give them ways to think about different ideas, open their minds, expose them. You know that we all, as educators, we learn through exposure ourselves. We learn best when we attend workshops with other practitioners, and we think and we compare what we do to what somebody else does, and we share best practices back and forth, and we take ideas and we go and we implement. The same thing with the adult learner. Compare and contrast is great for visual learners. Most adult learners are visual learners, tactile learners, and kinesthetic learners. Seldom are they solely auditory learners. Supporting improving high order thinking skills. Put them in an environment where you can scaffold a lesson and build to the higher order level of thinking. Don't just take because the learner scored at a level M and all you teach is level M strategies for success, level M concepts. Challenge that learner. Find where that same concept for level M is found in the NRS for level D or level A, and use them and scaffold it to teach them to get them there. If you raise it to the ceiling, you set that as the standard, the learner will meet you 80% of the way, guaranteed, if you prepare and set the environment for success. Promote a learner-friendly approach to a complex issue. That goes back to what we discussed earlier about ensuring that we pull information from the learner's prior experience. If you can remember what the learner shared in the orientation about themselves, and you make a connection with something complex that you are trying to drive home, and you connect it in a practical way, the learner will not only grasp your concept, but they will be able to apply the knowledge given and take it home and teach another, i.e. their children or their spouse or someone in their community. So take what they know and use it to their benefit and yours as well to make your instructional time matter most. You can teach across subjects. I'm hoping that after watching this IPDAE webinar, if in fact you're a teacher, and I know most of you are not, if in fact you are a teacher that teaches in isolation, I know most of you all teach across subjects, but if you are brand new to adult learning and adult instructing, and you're teaching just language, I hope that after this webinar, you begin to understand the importance and the gift in teaching across subjects. Language and math go together, language and reading, language and science, reading, language and social studies, they all go together. So don't use any one of them in isolation. Strategy 1, identifying similarities and differences. Strategy 2, an analysis of student work. Helpful tips that support learners. Real world entry points. Again, it goes back to that prior knowledge. Small group sorting activities. One-on-one discussions. That one-on discussion, I can't stress that enough. If you get time, when you put the learners in small groups and you see that there's someone in the back of the class, or you notice that there's someone that's extra quiet, that learner may need you to push in and talk about a writing sample that you may need to give that learner. They may need a little help to get started. Don't assume. Don't assume that they are disengaged because you don't know why they came, or that learner just can't be bothered. You just never know. Ask questions and use real world entry points to get to the meat of what the learner needs. Relate to the perspective of the adult learner. Again, I can't stress these same points enough. Because they bring something new bring something old to the table, you can take a new idea and you can put it with what they already know, and then you can teach a writing skill, whether it be a new vocabulary word, whether you're trying to show them how to build an effective thesis statement, you could be trying to show them how to build effective paragraphs to support their thesis statement. If you want to change a perspective, if you want to rework the way they're thinking, you're going to have to use real world entry points. Put them in small group settings where they can communicate one with each other. If you have a shy student, don't discount them as not wanting to learn. Pull them aside, conduct a push in, or pull them out and have a one-on-one with them and encourage them before you talk any writing with them. Use that time to encourage and then infuse the skill and or strategy you need them to take back to the group and share. The benefits, strategy 3, cooperative learning. The benefits of cooperative learning increase learner retention. And across the state, we have this discussion about learner retention. If we're gonna appeal to an adult learner that can in this season go to work instead of coming to class, we're going to have to appeal to the things that they need, not the ideas that we think work. As practitioners, yes, we are very successful at what we do, but we too can stand to learn a new way. If it's going to build our retention, let's just always be open. Positive relationship building, that is key. If they believe you care, they will go to the end of the world to prove you right and to show you that believing in them was the right thing to do. You have to do that through building confidence. Again, that incremental success celebration. You have to celebrate every little thing until it turns into a big thing. A great strategy for supporting student-teacher relationships would be the points above, that building learner confidence, positive relationship building, not with only you, but with their classmates. Adults don't buy into skills, teachers. Adults buy into community. That will help you with learner retention. Strategy 3, cooperative learning. The matrices, I skipped a slide. Let's see if I can go back. What's new from Florida IPDAE? Everyone knows we've got a lot of great things going on. You know that we have our matrices that we've taken so much time to build out. I hope everyone's using them. For this webinar, we have the language matrices. Go on Florida IPDAE and access them, download them, save them to your desktop so that you have them readily available. You know, as adult instructors, a lot of the times we don't have as much planning as we would like, but these matrices will really help to guide you along your way. And the lesson plans that we have will also get you to where you need to be so that you can be your best self as you always are in front of the learner. Matrices continued. That curriculum matrices online, again, we spoke about that. The electronic curriculum matrix is an online lookup tool, and I just told you about that. Make sure you have that downloaded onto your desktop. And if you have someone else that doesn't have it, share it with a friend. How does it work? The electronic curriculum matrix allows the user the ability to select 1 to 7 matrix types. So for this particular webinar, you'd go to ABE Language Arts, Knowledge of Language, Conventions of Standard English, Vocabulary and Acquisition Use. You select the domain from the drop down. In your matrix type, you'd have ABE Language. You'd pull from NRS level 4. You can pull some from level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there was one writing standard that was covered in level M that went a little higher than level 4. So we didn't spend much time there, but I would pull all of them down and just keep them where they're readily available for you. Matrix type again, and then you have the resource activity. The resource activities are what's going to help you, especially if you don't have a lot of time to plan. Here's a resource activity sample for you to see. We break it out completely for you. We're considered everything that we prepare for you and we build on Florida IPDAE, it's with you in mind, so that you and the learner spend most of your time in engaging each other and engaged in the process of learning, not with you building out your own lessons, not with you muffling through the standards, trying to break them out. We've done all of the work for you. Again, we're here for you. Everything that's done by Florida IPDAE is by educators for educators. Everything is done with you in mind. The resources from this webinar are also going to be in this PowerPoint. If you have any further questions, you can always reach out to me. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Well, without further ado, your feedback matters. I'll send this over to June. June, take it away. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Nicole, very much for all that information. As you see, 3 short questions are appearing now on your screen. If you could take the time to answer those questions, we would love to have your feedback. I'll give you just a minute to do that, and then I'll give you my final remarks. Okay, well, thank you so much for your feedback. Our next webinar will be next Wednesday, February 5th, and it will be Packing Your Professional Development. It's a part 2 series, so you won't want to miss it. This one is going to really focus on the teachers and how you can use all these resources in combination with other trainings that you have. So until then, I wish you a really happy afternoon, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.